this one's wife. Mummy, can I go, please? Hello, I'm H.G. Tudor. As the Duke of Sussex left a hilltop war museum during his surprise visit to Kiev on Friday, he was surrounded by men bearing the visible scars of battle. For the veterans who met the prince outside the National Museum of the History of Ukraine in the Second World War, the impact of the visit was profound. I didn't even realize he was going to be here. It was really nice, said Ivan Slobodaniak, 32, a former paratrooper. Unlike others, Slobodaniak did not get a chance to speak one-on-one with the prince on Friday morning, but if I had, I would have thanked him for all the support. About 200 veterans had signed up to attend the event, organised with the Ukrainian rehabilitation charity Superhumans, to find out more about the Prince's charity and the Invictus Games. Little did they know that Harry would be in attendance. There was a meeting and various conversations. What he said meant a lot to me and to the guys, said Slobodaniak, who lost his legs in 2023 fighting in the village of Novoselivka in the Luhansk region. I especially liked his words about the support of our mothers and the women in our lives. This is true. If it wasn't for their support, I don't know what we would do. When the Times newspaper asked Harry about his impressions of his morning in the Ukrainian capital, a city under almost constant bombardment, he was ushered into his car before he could respond. But he did stop briefly to pose for a photograph with Artem Krebyet, also a double amputee who now hopes to be an Invictus competitor. Before the war, Krebyet was not interested in sport, but he says it's been a major part of his recovery. I didn't do sports before. I started after the injury during rehabilitation. My brothers in arms pulled me into sports, he said. I'm glad that Harry came to us because they really develop veteran rehabilitation through sports, motivate our community in general. Maxim Sakno, 27, who was trained by the British Armed Forces in the north of England, noted that he shared with the Prince not only an interest in veterans' rehabilitation, but a love of horses. He was injured in his right leg on the Bakhmut front in August 2023. When I returned from being wounded after amputation, the first thing that came to my mind was that I wanted horses. I couldn't stand it anymore. In the hospital, I wanted to see the horses, pet them and talk to them, to hug them, he said. Vasil Tamulis, 38, who was injured fighting in the Serebryansky forest in the Luhansk region in 2023, came to the Superhumans event with his daughter Polina, 6, also with the ambition of taking part in the selection for the Invictus Games in Birmingham in 2027. He said, Harry travels to other countries. He unites them by promoting initiatives and by talking about them. That's why I believe it's very good for our country that he comes, supports us in such a difficult time, when there's a war and so many people are unmotivated after captivity or injury, he said. The Prince's visit follows Russia's largest drone and missile attack in 3.5 years of war last weekend, which damaged the cabinet of ministers building in central Kyiv. Yulia Seredenko, the Ukrainian Prime Minister, whose offices are in the building, was due to meet with Harry during his visit. On a train overnight from Poland to Kyiv, the Prince explained he had been invited to the Ukrainian capital by Olga Rudnieva, the founder of Superhumans. I bumped into Olga in New York, he told The Guardian. It was a chance meeting, and I asked her what I could do to help. She said the biggest impact you have is coming to Kyiv. I had to check with my wife and the British government to make sure it was okay. Then the official invitation came. The trip comes at the end of Harry's 4-day visit to Britain from his home in California. Accordingly, after the biggest drone and missile attack that had taken place on the capital, Harry deems that it's okay for him to go and visit. Once again, demonstrating his hypocrisy, whereby he bleats about how it's not safe for his family to go to the United Kingdom, which isn't actually at war with anybody, isn't receiving any missile attacks or drone attacks, but nevertheless, it's appropriate for him to whinge and whine about the potential threats in the United Kingdom, and then off he goes to a war zone. It demonstrates, of course, that his complaints about safety in relation to the United Kingdom are just an artifice designed to elicit sympathy, the direction of his wife, and it relates to the necessity of wanting security paid for by other people in order to diminish the impact upon the residual benefit of money. And, as we know with this one's wife, she wants the security and she wants it large so that she can make a splash whenever she turns up somewhere. She wants the four-vehicle motorcade and the surrounding security of men with sunglasses on, listening to their earpieces, armed, etc., because it turns heads. I've explained elsewhere about many people going to places without such obvious security, and they don't experience any difficulties whatsoever. Thus, it lays bare, of course, the hypocrisy that's exhibited by the Sussexes, no surprise there, but also, rather entertainingly, demonstrates the necessity of him having to seek permission from his second mummy, this one's wife. This was something that was in the headline of the coverage from People.com, where they announced Prince Harry takes surprise trip to Ukraine, says he had to check with my wife, this one's wife, and UK government. Once again, it's a Harry trip involving his organisation that he was involved in the creation of, the Invictus Games, and yet this one's wife has to elbow her way in by being mentioned by virtue of Harry saying, oh, I had to check with my wife. And ordinarily, people might well say, well, I needed to discuss it with my loved ones because I was entering into a war zone, but you wouldn't necessarily broadcast that. You just do it and you get on with it and you do so privately. But we know that it needs to be aired by the Sussexes because this one's wife needs it to be known that he checks with her, that he's such a good husband, that he checks in with her to ensure that it's okay. You all know that the reason this happens is because, first of all, she needs to assert control over him. She is the handler as the narcissist, and therefore he is obligated to check with her that it's okay that he goes. In the same way, can I go to the toilet now? Or am I allowed to pop down the road and have a couple of beers? Could I have another cookie, etc.? It's all part of the control that she asserts. And the simp that is Harry doesn't realise how ridiculous he sounds by allowing that to be aired in the press. And furthermore, it's all part of this one's wife's assertion of control over the media to demonstrate, see what a wonderful marriage we've got and how important I am that my husband checks in with me to make sure it's okay before he goes anywhere. Once again, it has the reverse impact that people just laugh at Harry's simp-like behaviour and the controlling nature of this one's wife, because as is always the case with this one's wife, whatever she chooses to do, the collateral consequence always comes along and bites her on the backside. An attempt, of course, to rehabilitate the image of Harry through the use of Invictus Games, with all of these injured soldiers talking about how lovely it was to hear from Harry, and undoubtedly their sentiments are genuine, but it's utilised, of course, in a cynical fashion by the Sussexes for publicity, and at the same time it once again demonstrates that this one's wife controls and handles Harry, making him look like the beta cuck that he's become known as. I'm H.G. Tudor. Thank you for listening.